friends, it's Terry Gaines. In this video tutorial, I'm going to share a crisscross fun fold card with you, created with the Simply Zinnia bundle. I'm using this stamped image in the stamp set, and I've already have it stamped and cut out with the dies. This bundle has the stamp set and the dies that are bundled together for a 10% savings, or you can purchase them separate. There's so much you can do with this stamp set. I have the measurements for this card, and I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up to the card base. So you need a decorative image. Usually my decorative image determines my cardstock color and whether I use cardstock, texturized cardstock, or if I use designer series paper. So as I mentioned, I have this already cut out. I'm not one that likes to do a lot of coloring, but with the blends, I have learned to love coloring. I'm going to be coloring this in with the blends. I have picked Flirty Flamingo for one of the flower colors, Pumpkin Pie for another floral color, Granny Apple Green for the greenery, and then Daffodil Delight for one flower in the centers of some of the flowers. I'm not going to take the time to color on this video. I do have that work done ahead of time. When I color in with the blends, I love the fact that Stampin' Up! Has all of these lines in here. That tells me where I can put my darker colors for shading. So I've got this colored in to save some time. So now that I have this colored in, as I mentioned, the 3 floral colors, and then I have the Pumpkin Pie and the Daffodil also in the center. So that work is done ahead of time. So I have my decorative image, and I'm going to choose to use the Flirty Flamingo cardstock in basic white for this. But I could have chose designer series paper. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and we're going to talk about the inside layer, number 2, and an inside layer, number 1. Now that is for the inside sentiment. So the layer 1 is the cardstock color. As I mentioned, I'm going to use Flirty Flamingo, and then I'm using basic white. Now this inside layer is for your sentiment. So I'm going to stamp a sentiment on this layer. I'm going to use the layering leaves for my sentiments for this stamps for this card. So I actually have that done ahead of time. I stamped the sending hugs with the Memento ink, and then I've layered that onto this. So that work is done ahead of time. So that's for the inside sentiment. So we've got those 2 pieces done. Then the panel 2, we have a layer number 1 and a layer number 2. So the layer 1 is the cardstock color. I'm staying with the Flirty Flamingo, and then we have this. Now this is where the decorative image is going to go on. So you could use designer series paper back here. You could texturize it. I'm actually going to texturize mine with the Distressed Tile 3D folder. I just love this to give a subtle design to it. Hopefully that shows up in the camera. So what I'm going to do is replace this with this. It just gives it a nice background, and then adhere this to the Flirty Flamingo. So to save some time, I've got that done ahead of time. So I'm going to swap those out. And that panel 2 is where your decorative image is going to be attached. So we're going to attach it after we assemble the card. Then panel 1, we have 2 layers. The largest layer is the cardstock, or the colored cardstock, and then I have basic white again. This can be designer series paper. I'm going to texturize it with the same folder. And to save some time, I have that already adhered. So one thing about this, you could eliminate this layer number 2 if you want. It depends on how you want to put your color combinations together. Now we're up to the card base. The card base is 10 3/4 by 5.5. We need to score this, and I'm going to bring in the Simply Scoring, and we're going to score this. If you duplicate the card, you'll need to score this at 1 5/8. So I'm going to push this up to the corner and hold it in place. And I always like using the larger end. I'm going to score at 1 5/8, at 3 1/4, at 7 1/2, and at 9 1/8. So those are the score lines for this. I'm going to set that off to the side. Now what we want to do is score this. So the first score is going to be a mountain. Mountain is going to go up like that. Then you're going to have a valley. Then you're going to have another valley. And then you're going to have a mountain. So it's going to be folded like this. You're going to want to bring a bone folder in and crease these so that you can burnish those down. And we're going to have it like this. Now the first thing we want to attach is that sentiment layer. We're going to open that up and put adhesive on the back of this piece. And this is going to go right in the center. And so I'm going to look for equal spacing on the top and bottom, equal spacing on the sides. I'm going to hold it up, not let my adhesive adhere until I feel comfortable where I'm placing that. So we're putting this in first because it's easier to put it in first, but also we're going to use this as a guide. We're going to fold this down. Our next layer that's going to be attached is the panel 1. Now this layer is going to go on this, only on this panel, and we don't want any exposed adhesive here. So by putting this on first, and it also covers that up, this is going to allow us to have this layer as our guide. It's going to be our guide for where we put adhesive. So I don't know if it's going to show up, but I started my adhesive below here and stopped before I got here on this, right at the fold. Then I can take this, turn it over, put adhesive, oops, get this going here, put adhesive on this end. So adhesive here and adhesive here is going to be enough to hold it. I'm going to hold this up on an angle. I'm looking for equal spacing on the top, the side, and the bottom. And I'm going to hold it up on an angle so my adhesive does not touch. And then look for straightness and equal spacing and let that fall into place. Now that has only attached to this panel and we have no exposed adhesive. Now we're going to close this. Now what we're going to do is take this panel, oops, we're going to close that and close that. We want that on the top. This panel is going to be adhered just to this side, this panel, and this is where the crisscross comes into play. We want this panel to tuck underneath this one. So we're going to use dimensionals to adhere it. We also want equal spacing here, here, and here, and that's going to kind of be our guide. So what I'm going to do, as I mentioned, we're putting this on with dimensionals. I'm going to slide this over so I have equal spacing on the top and bottom. I'm going to bring my dimensionals in, and what I'm going to do is take a dimensional and I'm going to place one down here and one, oops, yeah, I want to make sure I had the dimensional and not just the cover or the backing on that. So I'm going to bring this up to the camera once I get this into place and talk a little bit more. We want a fair number of dimensionals because it's going to be the only thing holding this panel. And this is where I said I have equal spacing here and here. That means my dimensionals need to stay above this cardstock and below that one and as close as possible to this without touching it. So we've got those placed, and let's see, I do have my take your pick tool, works great for getting these backings off. And there we go. So now what I'm going to do is place this, look for my equal spacing top, bottom, and this side, and then let it fall onto those dimensionals. And now that's adhere here, so my panels will open up and I have this crisscross effect and they will tuck underneath. So isn't that a fun card? As I mentioned, this can be designer series paper. It can be so many different options here. Now for this panel, what I'm going to do is attach a sentiment. I stamped this ahead of time. It's from the same stamp set that I used for this sentiment. And I've cut it out with one of the larger banners from the Stylish Shape banners, and then I'm going to, I cut it, so I'm going to adhere it to this edge. Let me talk a little bit about embellishing this panel. It is, I'm going to put it right to this edge, and I know that I only have about 1/4 of an inch of spacing here, so anything I don't want visible when the card is closed has to stay within that border. This would be perfect to add some of the brass butterflies to it, which I happen not to bring over to my video station. And now I can decorate this. So with this, I'm going to attach it with some dimensionals. So I'm going to take the backings off. And I have several dimensionals on here because I don't want it to collapse in the middle. And these are so strong, you don't need too many. So now I'm going to place this down, and I'm going to center this card, or center this on the card, attach that, and that will finish off my card. This is called a Criss-Cross fun fold card. I first started designing this card and made it about a year ago. I'll link some videos to some retired product. This one has designer series paper that's retired, and it opens up so you can use, and this panel is smaller. This panel is not as wide, so more of the decorative part of that panel. I changed this dimension to be larger to cover up that. So that's the beauty of card making. You can change it up. Here's some retired product. I have videos on this, so if you already own this product and want to create this Criss-Cross fun fold card, I'll link you to this video in my blog post and in the text portion of my YouTube video. If you found me via YouTube, look in the text portion of this video and you'll get a direct link to my blog post with photos and a PDF you can download that has the measurements. And I would love to have you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Take care and happy creating.